You're watching The Ugly Inside? Subscribe below.
Football's finally back. Finally, we can talk about the Premier League, and we're all here to talk about our season preview. So sit back, get yourself a cup of tea. Nick and Clive are here. Let's talk about our pre-season so far. Played 5, won 2, drawn 2, lost 1, scored 7, 6 against, and we come off the back of a brilliant win against Sevilla on Saturday.
Well, that's what you want from pre-season, isn't it? I mean, ultimately, the first games of pre-season mean nothing. You know, you put out weakened squads because of international duty. You play loads of youth team players, and you try and get people fit and a feel for the ball. You know, put out double sides each half. The idea is you bring yourself up to a sort of crescendo where the week before the season you want to be winning games and looking the part. So from that point of view, I think pre-season has gone in the right direction. You don't want to be winning the first game 6-0 and losing the last one 2-0. But ultimately, it's not about results. It's about getting players playing and studying. We know we've got a good squad. We know we need a couple of more additions before the start of the season, and we just need to find out if this year's manager can manage them.
And we'll talk about transfers in another video. But Clive, what have you seen of our pre-season so far? We obviously went down 4-0 to Augsburg in a terrible, embarrassing game.
Well, you can't read anything into the results because if after the Augsburg game, you'd be chucking yourself off the itching bridge. But then you take it. We've just beaten the Europa Cup champions for 3 years, 2-0 here, and you think, well, we could be right up there. So don't read anything into it. It's a fitness exercise. It's something for the new manager to see how certain players react in different situations. That's the most important thing. That he's got a really good education now of what's happening. I think, like any other team, there's been no major injuries. That's a plus. Mm-hmm.
And that's refreshing to go into a new season without any new injuries. And speaking of players that have had injuries, Charlie Austin, it'll be key for him to keep him fit. He scored 2 goals in pre-season so far.
Yeah, I mean, you want your strikers fit. Again, there's people who clamour for new strikers. I think we got a good array of striking talent. We got a good variety of striking talent. You know, we've got Gabbiadini, who's a little bit faster. We got Charlie Austin, who's a bit more of your traditional style centre-forward stroke finisher. We got a good balance there, and with Shane Long and other attacking wide players. It's all about keeping us fit. Last season, the fact that we finished 8th in the league, given that we lost our top striker in November and we lost our top set defender and possibly top player in January for the rest of the season, the fact we still managed to finish 8th is a minor miracle, given the manager went to pot right in the second half of the season. So there's a lot to be positive about this squad, and if we add the right players and we have the right manager and keep people fit, then there's every reason why we should finish top 10 again.
And the interesting recipe for Pellegrino is whether he can combine Gabbiadini and Austin. Gabby's got 2 in pre-season as well, and they're 2 very different strikers, as Nick just mentioned. You've got your traditional centre forward as Austin, Gabbiadini running along the last defender.
Yeah, do you play them both? Look, the most important thing is that we score goals, especially at home. It's a confidence thing. That it's the crowd are a bit, what's the word, sarcastic about it all, because, well, rightfully so. We've gone 6 home games without a goal. When did that ever happen before? Whoever scores, it doesn't really matter. You know, wherever it comes from, and it could well come from midfield. I fancy Ward-Prowse to score a lot more goals this season, and Redmond. So I agree, Nick. So it doesn't really matter where it comes from. I think Nick's right. We do have good, different attacking options. The main thing is just stick it in the onion bag.
I mean, the thing is, Pellegrino is known for being able to tactically change things, not just from game to game, but within games. And what you've got, you know, if it's not working out with one of them going up top, you can switch them around and mix and match. I mean, from what we've seen so far, Pellegrino seems to want to play Gabbiadini in a more forward notion with Austin behind him. Whether that works or not, we'll soon find out if that holds water.
Mm-hmm. And obviously Saturday was perhaps an indication of the first team to play against Swansea next weekend. Do you think, are we close to knowing that first team, and what is our first team?
Yeah, I think he's close to knowing the first team. Obviously things are going on behind the scenes transfer-wise that could dictate how it all pans out. But more than anything, I want to see those 2 fullbacks retained. I want to see Bertrand and Cedric, because I think they give the whole defence a balance to whoever's in the centre-half position, and they're 2 of the best fullbacks in the league, so I really want to see them stay at Saints and look to the new season and build.
Nick, what's our strongest 11, would you say?
What, naming the strongest 11?
Yeah, well, so we'll start with Forster in goal, who's now got his 44 back, which could be a good luck omen for him.
Yeah, I mean, Forster in goal is probably the best keeper we've got, or definitely the best keeper we've got. Clive's right, the two fullbacks are, Bertrand's the best English fullback in the Premier League in my opinion, and Suarez, Cedric, call him what we will, is another great fullback, and again, right at that with him. The key is the two central positions. I wouldn't be happy if we're having to start with the same two players that we ended the season with last year. We do need people in, at least one, and see where it goes with Van Dijk. Midfield is clearly going to play two holding players, which means Romeu, and if this latest rumour is right and we sign this Lemina, he's another strong holding player who can play in several positions as well. So I'd expect to see Romeu and Lemina, assuming he signs. Redmond for me would be a must on one side of the attacking three midfielders. Then presumably he's going to play Austin in behind, and then who do you play on the final position wise? You've got a choice of Tadic, you've got a choice of Buffal, you can even play Long, and then there's Gabbiadini up front. We've got an array. We've got a good array. Our squad is probably stronger in terms of personnel than it has been at any time over the last few years. We were a good squad, poorly led last year. We've taken the poorly led piece out of the equation. If we get them playing, then we'll finish top 10.
There was no mention of James Ward-Prowse there, who felt, for me, his best season ever last season.
Yeah, I mean, purely and simply because I'd lost count of how many players I'd picked. So, James Ward-Prowse is in there, and yeah, they should mention it. He can come on and be a playmaker, but that shows the squad that, there's going to be players like Buffal, Tadic, Ward-Prowse, Davis. We never mentioned Stephen Davis. We never mentioned Hodgberg. We never mentioned Classy. That's the array of bench we've got. When we look at it 3 years ago, when we had players on the bench like Lloyd Isgrove and people like that. And this is where we've come on as a squad. It's about managing it, though.
Now, this pre-season, the summer even, has been marred by the whole saga of Virgil van Dijk. How should Pellegrino settle this saga, and do we think that he's going to still be a Southampton player on September the 1st?
Personally, no. I've never thought that. I thought it would be a miracle if Virgil stayed. It's a bit sour the way that it's happened, to be honest. Saints are making their stance. They're digging their heels in. I got bored with it, to be honest. Absolutely bored. I want to look forward to the season. I don't want to look forward to all this transfer speculation. From a practical point of view, I think it's delayed our plans in buying players, and I think that could cost us a bit. But like Nick says, there's a lot of options in that squad. You couldn't really name a strongest team. It's the boss's decision at the end of the day. The good thing is he's got good options.
Mm-hmm. Right, finished off the video. Predictions, top scorers, expectations, and position. What do you reckon, Nick?
Top scorer is going to be in top three order: Gabbiadini, Austin, and Redmond.
Position?
I think 8th is our par position, given the fact that Everton have moved ahead of us with some of the signings. We've got to watch out for the likes of West Ham, who've got, the year under them in the stadium and have got a little bit of money. Top 10 is a must, and then it's 8th, 9th or 10th is success. This club had never finished 4 times in a row in the top 10, and it now needs to make it 5. And if it does, we've cemented our place. We're as high as we've ever been as a club in our history. We've got the best foundations to build on if we can do that. It's setbacks. And one of the setbacks about being successful has been people who've wanted our players. And that's why people say, why don't Stoke and why don't, Crystal Palace and why don't West Brom sell their players? The answer is because they haven't got as good players as us, and that's a pitfall of it. Finish top 10. Job done.
Okay, Clive, your predictions, mate. Top scorer, position, and expectations.
Gabster. It's got to be the Gabster. He's the man. I think he's going to come on fire again this season. I think he's quality. He gets into spaces that defenders hate, and it's all about the service into him. So, yeah, Gabbiadini for me. I'd love to see Tadic have a great season because I know he's a great player, but I think he's got to play more for the team. You've got so many questions there, but Buffal, another one, really. But yeah, so more goals from Ward-Prowse. James, I'm sure he's capable, and Charlie. I think Charlie will, depend on how he plays. It's so difficult to know if they're going to go two up top. Austin and Gabbiadini, you'd say, is that going to work? But it might well do.
League position prediction?
League position, I'm going to go for just outside the top 10th, 11th or 12th. I just feel that other teams have improved, and come and see me on September the 1st. I might have a different answer to you, but I just feel that other teams have invested. We haven't. We finished very poorly last season. If you finish poorly, okay, you've got a new manager, you've got new ideas, but how do you... It's a very tough league. As I say, other teams have improved, and I just feel that 11th or 12th is about where we're at. Okay. And depending on that centre-half position, because that is so crucial.
That's the crucial bit, the centre-half position. And I agree, other teams have improved, but I don't think they've improved that much. I mean, if you look at the players Everton has signed and are looking at signing, Giffy Sigurdsson, 50 million, he wouldn't have gone for 15 last year, this time last year.
He's a very good player. Yeah. He's a very good player.
I'm not denying that, but what I'm saying is that's what have they improved as much? Everton have spent a lot of money, and that gives you illusion that they're improving. But the reality is they've probably spent twice as much for each player that they've signed. Jordan Pickford, 32 games in the Premiership, and you go for 30 million quid.
Well, Everton, like us, we lost 30 goals when we sold Pella and Mane. Or they moved on. Of course, Pella's moved on. Everton have lost all those goals as well. But let's not get too wrapped up in Everton. There are, like Nick says, West Ham. I think even the likes of Watford are spending big. Bournemouth, I think, have made some very, very shrewd signings. I'd hate to think them finishing above us because that would really get my goat. But yeah.
My prediction would be that we will finish above Everton. I think Everton are under a lot of pressure. If they don't perform, they've got Europa League. Koeman could be on the chopping block as well. They spent best part of 100 million on perhaps even 150 by the end of the window with Sigurdsson. But I think they're under pressure to deliver, and in Europe. And I think we can sneak in to 7th.
I would be delighted if we did that. Absolutely delighted. I know that there's some quality players here, but I just feel if you don't invest and you keep things moving on, it's football is a bit different. That you need to have 2 or 3 new players coming in every season, and I'm talking about top Premiership players. Which, we take a punt on foreigners. We're just taking a punt on the guy from Juventus. Juventus, a great team, but we very rarely sign a proven Premiership player. We sign people from outside. It's the policy. It's worked for us, so don't knock them too much. But difficult.
To be fair, that's been what it's like over the years, hasn't it? Going back, in the mid-70s, the players we brought in were not always proven Premiership players at times. We relied on youth. People like Ron Davis, when he came to the club, was second division Norwich City. He'd never played in the top flight. Going forward, there's been plenty of players like that we brought in who Neil Ruddock and various people. Even Richard Hall. We've always looked for that place because we have to, because we can't compete for the truly top players with the top clubs.
If we look at it, we've had a meteoric rise from League One, very, very quick, much quicker than everybody expected, and then had a couple of fantastic seasons where we've qualified for Europe. And perhaps last season was a bit of a reality check. OK, League Cup final aside, it was a pretty average season. Even though we finished 8th, I don't know how we did it. But we did it. So fans' expectations were really sky high, and it's probably last season was a reality check. But Saints to stay at the level now have to invest, have to look at the future. I think in all these other clubs a lot of other clubs have increased their capacity. I think we have to look at 40,000. I think, and I think we can do that slowly. We can improve slowly over the years, but. Don't ever stand still. That's what I'm worried about. I think the manager's progressive. I think there's a good squad of players, but we just need that little bit extra to stay where we're at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're totally right there. I mean, but the problem is we finished 8th last season, and it seemed like it was the worst season we'd ever had. And people said, this is the worst season that we've ever had in our worst team. You know, they obviously haven't been around too long, because they've been certainly far worse in recent history. But the reason we should have a little bit of excitement about it, or a little bit of hope for the future, is we've built ourselves to a position where, even with such adversity, with players injured, with a manager who is a little bit clueless, we still finished 8th, when the teams, the likes of Bournemouth, West Brom and all that, couldn't finish above us. So, you know, sometimes improvement isn't just about signing players, it's about signing a, you know, right manager. And if we've got him, we're quite capable of staying up where we are in the top 10. Clive's right. If we need to improve, if we want to take the next step upwards, the next thing is to expand the stadium. But you're not going to spend, any owner isn't going to spend money and invest in a stadium where every time you have a little bit of a setback, and let's face it, setbacks in our youth have been relegation, have been, you know, yeah, have been relegation, have been, you know, success has been 4th from bottom. Yeah, that's always a setback. Success has been 4th from bottom and getting from relegation. Now we see failure as 8th. But every time something goes wrong, when everyone starts saying, oh, I'm not renewing my season ticket, and suddenly we have 4,000 empty seats in that, who's going to invest in a new stadium? So, you know, you've got a back. You know, you can't expect an owner to put their hands in their pocket unless the fans themselves are going to put their hands in the pocket. You know, clubs like, you know, Sunderland.
All I'm saying is I think clubs have moved on and we haven't. I think we've on the pitch we've done okay. But off it, I really think we've got to look at getting to 40,000. I think it's really important for our club standard, because I don't want a situation where in a few years' time, all these other clubs that are getting 40, 50, 60,000 plus, and we're still on 32. And you've got a Dow situation saying, oh, well, we can't do any better than we could because we've only got 32,000 capacity.
No.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree totally with what you're saying. But what I'm saying is all those clubs that have progressed because they've stuck with it. Everton had an awful season a couple of years ago and finished like 14th or whatever it was in the league, went in Europe, and, you know, they have more cause to be a little bit more, think they're a little bit more better than perhaps they were. But their fans, still 39,000 every week. They all moan, but they all renewed their season tickets. They all went week in, week out. They didn't bail out the moment something happens. And that's what we got. If we want 40,000, I want to be stood here with extra tiers on it and everything. But it ain't going to happen unless our own fans make it happen. And if you want to build a stadium, you've got to have the fans coming week in, week out. Not empty seats all the time. You've got to see the enthusiasm for it. All I get is people saying, well, it's the cost. I can't justify the cost and the entertainment. Well, we've had 2 pre-season friendlies where it's been £6 each. Yet the stadium's been half empty.
We're the victims of our meteoric rise, and we won so many games in the lower leagues, and then we did so well in the Premiership. Young players coming through, it was really exciting, and now it's about hard work. And I think, yes, some supporters have drifted away. Some supporters will get very sarcastic at the slightest thing if we're not spending 50 million on a striker. Yeah. But the reality of the situation is, I believe this city is well capable, and the area is well capable, and we need to stay ahead of believe it or not, the Bournemouths and the Brightons, because I want Southampton to be the biggest club on the south coast. I want them to regularly put 40,000 in that place, and I believe they can. And I think a lot of the support could come from within the city rather than, we've got fantastic support in the area, but I think we're missing a trick in the heartlands in this city. And I really think 8,000 isn't a great deal more than what we've got, provided the pricing is sensible and family tickets are provided. I really think we could do it. But it's not something you could do overnight.
No, you're right, and they're doing that. They've extended the family areas. Yeah. They've done that. They've made seats available. But the fact is, you can still buy tickets. We're a week away from the opening game of the season. There's still a couple of thousand tickets left. The West Ham game, there's still 4,000 tickets left. You know, if you're going to have a stadium, they should be sold out. But it's all about mental attitude, and it's all about perception. And at the moment, everyone perceives it's doom and gloom. And unless we get... Well, you would think it reading on social media. No one's out there saying, this is brilliant, this is the best football I've ever watched. Everyone is still speaking like it's last season. I could accept it where people moaning and groaning under pools there.
That's where 6 games without a goal at home hits home to people. And it does piss them off, doesn't it? Let's face it. You're going to be fed up. You know, you're going to be a bit sarcastic. You're going to be a bit negative towards the team. So, unfortunately, first things first, we've got to put some balls in the goal and then get everybody excited again.
Absolutely agreed. But that's gone. You can't moan at it for 6 months, 6 games as people did last year.
Money spider crawling on your neck.
Yeah.
Invest it in a striker.
I'll invest it in my own. Hang on, get back in. Yeah. It's got. I agree, but that's gone, and we're still going on about it. We're still going on about the fact that we had 6 games without goal. We all know why we went 6 games without a goal, because the manager. The manager was finished. He didn't want to know. He was clueless. He'd lost the squad, and we coasted towards the end of the season. Now, people still go on about, there were 6 goals last season, six games last season without a goal at home. Well, fine. You're never going to be pleased, because that's been and gone. This is a new season. We can't keep up and on about it. We can't still keep blaming the Japanese for Pearl Harbor. It's sometimes you've got to draw a line under it and get on. And that's what other football clubs do, who fill the ground each week and get on. They don't keep harping on about the past. They look to the future.
Right, I think we're going to try and wrap it up there then, because we could be here all afternoon. But leave us your comments in below, your predictions for the new season, your top scorers, your league positions, and let us know what you think of the rant between Nick and Clive. Like, comment and subscribe for more.
We're old school.